the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, send down upon us those who hold office the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose we may faithfully serve in our offices to promote the well-being of all. Through Christ our name. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Officer Reyes, thank you for being with us this evening. We do not have any presentations tonight. We do have one public hearing. Madam Clerk, will you please read item 5A?
Supporting a funding application for downtown improvements through the Transportation Alternatives Program.
We'll call upon our Transportation Officer, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This is an application for what's called transportation enhancements, improvements to an existing transportation system. We are continuing the program that we began last year that is about to get underway to fill in the gaps of the brick sidewalks in the downtown community. We'll continue to do that, and then we've also added some other items that we think are important. One of them is traffic calming at the corner of William and Charles Street, which has gained attention as the site of the slave auction block. And as part of that process, we will do some initial archaeology around the slave block to just determine some basic information. This shouldn't be construed as pursuing the interpretation of that site. That project is going to take place with more public involvement, with a little bit. It'll be a little bit stronger than something like this. This is some initial work that can be done that can certainly inform that process, but this isn't that process. It is going to come later. We are also going to look at the archaeology in the George Street tunnels. There's some work that needs to be done there, and we need to look at those from an engineering perspective to make sure that the sidewalk surface we put on top of those doesn't cause damage to that resource that's underneath there. Other than that, we're looking at pedestrian improvements, some installation of lighting where there's gaps, and ADA ramps and such at intersections. So it's a continuation of the process of the project that we began last year, and hopefully this will put us in a good place that we can then press on and do other things with these kinds of funds. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Are there any questions for Mr. Nelson? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this matter? Then I will declare the public hearing closed. This is a resolution requiring one vote.
Madam Mayor, I'll move a resolution supporting a funding application for downtown improvements to the Transportation Alternatives Program.
Second.
Thank you. Please cast your votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We come now to the time that we provide for the comments from citizens who have signed up to speak before the start of the meeting. Again, everyone, please observe the 5-minute time limit and yield the floor when the clerk indicates your time has expired. We have one person signed up to speak tonight, Mr. Matthew Meadows.
Thank you. I am here to inform the local government about the irresponsible handling I have experienced as a veteran student at Germanna Community College. On March 23rd, 2018, I was issued a no trespassing order from Germanna Community College after the security team assessed a complaint from a student in regards to my social media post. I'm not certain where they got their evidence from, but I can assure you that this picture of me is years old. Pardon me. I can confidently say I wasn't even in the state at that time if this was the case. This is not the first time I've been accused of being a threat to colleges. In fact, this is the 4th time I've should also include that I've never been criminally charged by any of these accusations because the claims made against me never bear any fruit. I am confident that the only reason for all of these misrepresentations of myself is because I have been vocal about the product the colleges have I've attended are selling to the public. The first quarter at Green River Community College in Washington State, I raised significant awareness of an instructor, Daniel J. Garcia, and his poor performance. In 2016, I came across a news article done by King 5 in Seattle and KREN News in Colorado, Denver, which supported my claims, along with judicial information about the instructor and his now for his teaching credentials. I have spoken against the practices of Germanna Community College. This is why that entity is crying wolf about me. I tried to communicate with the staff, mostly the Veterans Office at Germanna Community College, to assist me in some way with my academic success. Unfortunately, I was ignored, even though they knew my medical conditions were contributing to the lack of performance. I now stand before the Fredericksburg Town Hall as a threat to Germanna Community College, the fourth college to consider me a threat. I'll leave you all with this question. Am I that serious of a threat to public safety? If so, why am I walking free and without criminal charges? My answer to that is they don't know how to handle veterans, especially those with service-connected disabilities. And just to verify that, I just got this in the mail today from the VA regarding my position and whatnot. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Mendes, can I get your address, please, for the record?
My address is 9403 Cumberland Drive, apartment 103, Fredericksburg, Virginia, 22408.
Thank you, Mr. Mendes.
Thank you all.
I did mean to ask you for that too. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you all.
Are there any items that any counselor would like to add to the agenda? Councilor Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to add 2 items. We'll do item A, advertised tax rate, and item B, VRE and gas tax floor.
VRE and gas tax floor, okay? Item 7A, advertised tax, Councilor Fry, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to, thank you, President. Just wanted to add one item. Let me say youth activity. How about that?
Youth activity,
Yes.
okay? Anybody else? Alrighty, so we have 3 council agenda items. Item 7A, advertised tax rate. Councilor Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have been presented with the budget and had our first work session this evening as a council on the budget. A very good budget. I compliment the staff on putting it together, and the areas covered were areas that I think we've been chatting about quite a bit, especially on the public safety front with emergency medical services and the police department up there with regards to new employees. As people may be aware, and if they've looked at the budget, we are not fully funding the school board's request for funding. We had some discussion this evening with regards to our own city employees, with regards to what type of raise they were getting and when. And on the EMS front, some discussion was with the number of EMS personnel being hired, which I believe will all be further discussions in the council. It's kind of been a tradition of the council over the years when dealing with the budget to set an increase in the tax rate. Not to say we're going to do it, but what it does, it gives us a little flexibility to continue the discussions that we started this evening. So I'm going to move that we advertise a tax increase of 1 cent on the tax rate. Again, primarily to give council some flexibility as we continue our discussions. Again, in the past, sometimes we have raised it, sometimes we've not raised it as much as we've advertised, and sometimes we've not raised it at all. I don't think there's any one specific thing right now that really is driving this other than this gives us the flexibility to continue that discussion.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Motion's been seconded. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7B is VRE gas tax floor.
As all might be aware, the General Assembly has been having a great time spending local revenues on their problems, and VRE is no exception. While we've been asking for the gas tax floor to be set as it was originally supposed to be set at the 2013 level, the General Assembly has now deemed that they will set it at the 2013 level. However, The ongoing discussion, and as the last I heard, is still under discussion how this is actually going to balance out. But a large portion of the money that is raised, new money raised, I should say, is going to be dedicated to VRE, which presents us in a kind of a very interesting situation in that we already pay a share of the VRE budget based on ridership, which is paid out of the current revenues. Well, now we're going to have this potential influx of money, but it's going to be dedicated to a large portion of it to VRE. So the point being from our perspective is, okay, if they're getting all this new revenue on this side, shouldn't that impact what our payment is, or should our payment be credited towards that new revenue coming in dedicated to VRE? Now, the last board meeting, I have broached this topic. It's kind of important to us because it's, for us, one of the few resources we have for revenue projects in the city. Unlike Stafford, Spotsylvania, and other counties who have VDOT do a lot of work for them, we're pretty much on our own. So these dollars are very, very important to us when it comes to maintaining our roads, paying off debt service on parking garages, and any other type of transportation projects. And we talked about a few that we would like to do in the city on. Because frankly, state funding is getting smaller and smaller. So my point in bringing this up this evening is, I think this is a big enough issue that I want to be able to go back in April and at least feel that I have the backing of the council on taking steps to either continue to broach the subject and say, if the General Assembly comes back out and we don't know specifically how they're going to do it by percentage or they're going to do it by amount, that's still up in the air. But do we take the position that in some form or fashion, we get credited for that new money towards our annual payment to VRE? Or do we just go ahead and smile and say, wow, we just love VRE so much, we're going to let all this money sit over here and we're going to continue to pay our portion of the VRE budget through what funds we still are using currently today? I would hope that the position would be, and I think we will have to make some type of concession, because frankly, VRE is a good service. It has great impact on 95 and moving it, so being good team players, we should acknowledge that some of that new funding should go to VRE. But I think at the same time, looking at our local needs, that we want to be able to get some of that money banked back to us, going towards our payment to VRE. Unless there is any huge outcry to go another route, that's the position I plan on taking.
Vice Mayor Withers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to see the council go along with what Mr. Kelly is presenting. Obviously, VRE is important to all of us. And I've talked to him about this earlier tonight. I think to have the discussion, see how other localities are having this with the VRE members, and see if they can work out some deals and bring that back to council for our final approval. And I think that's what he would. I think that's what he would want to do. But I certainly think it's worthy of discussion, because we don't want to give up all these funds and still have to pay into the fund, you know, if we don't have to. So I think it's a good course to have the discussion on VRE board level, see what all the localities suggest, and then come back to council with your suggestion and see what we can do. So I think that's a good course, that, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you both for paying attention and staying on top of this matter. It's been something we've been fighting for some time, to get that gas tax floor and have them give a sizable portion of it, you know, exclusively to VRE is difficult, because it is an important source of revenue for the city. Councilor Duffy?
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate the chance to have more flexibility with how we spend the money, and appreciate you bringing it up, and I hope you get some help with the board.
Councilor Ellis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm assuming that this is the first of probably many shots over the ballot in terms of VRE. And I know from years ago when I was on the board, they were looking at their operational costs, and if they raise the rates every year by 15% or so, it's still not going to cover the cost of the VRE. So they're just I don't want to say a train wreck waiting to happen, but it's, you know, no pun intended, but it's not looking good for the VRE.
Councilor Gillen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, it's fully understood that under the current dynamic, which is usually a fair increase 1 year, the next year it's a subsidy increase to the localities, usually roughly about 3%. If we continue on the 3.3 we are on now, yeah, we hit a wall in 2030. Actually, in discussions recently, we would have to start downsizing operations starting in 2025, so it's a lot sooner. And part of the issue is, frankly, the state has kind of, as bad as the transportation side of the house is, the transit side is an absolute disaster. You've heard the term fiscal cliff. Well, they were supposed to deal with it this session because in another year or two, money for transit goes, and it's not just VRE, it's trains, buses, everything. I would not necessarily refer to it as a train wreck, because I think VRE does provide a very good service for the investment and what it does in relieving traffic. And also look at it from a standpoint, it's an economic development component for us as people being able to leave here and come back and spend money here. But there is, frankly, the deficit right now for VRE over the long term for our long range plan is about 45 million. And that's us. That's not to mention, remember the last round SMART scale, you had $1 billion that the state put on the table, and you had $9 billion in applications from across the state. Fundamentally what it is this is a failure of the state to take on their obligations to deal with transportation. Not only that, which makes us even worse, as bad it is for us and VRE funding, when the state decides they're going to deal with the metro problem by going to Northern Virginia's Transportation Authority, who spent a lot of time and effort putting a plan together and committing their funding, and they get a lot of funding from the Transportation Authority, and suddenly reaching in and going, oh, by the way, you're going to take 50 to 80 million of your dollars, and you have to spend it on metro. I mean, as much as you've heard some coming out of Richmond on, look, the state's finally facing up to their obligations to transportation. No, they're not. They're just raiding localities to find the money because there's no new revenue sources, no new anything coming out of the state. They're just raiding local funding now to take care of the problems they should have been taken care of years ago. But I've got my march. Don't get me on a soapbox in this one.
No. also this shouldn't be misconstrued as us trying to, not, provide our fair share, hold our own.
Exactly.
We're doing that,
exactly.
absolutely, but it could be misconstrued as that, and that's not the case at all.
I have talked to the board on this topic already, so this is not going to be anything new in the conversation. I have to say that nobody on the VRE Operations Board is disagreeing with or getting any pushback on this. They understand that there's going to have to be a discussion of how we're going to deal with this dedicated funding to VRE and how it impacts. And I can tell you right now, obviously Manassas Park are with us because they're in the same situation we're in. When this is a little bit of funding that they have that they can use for things locally. But I've not gotten any pushback from anybody from Fairfax, Arlington, Prince William. They all understand that this is going to be a conversation. The question will be is, what are we willing to accept? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Fry, item 7C, youth activity.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. I should have went first because Mr. Kelly was real serious, a lot of real serious issues here. But I do want to say to that point, me sitting here on council is pretty cool to see even what Mr. Kelly was saying just now, because we all sit on different boards and commissions that a lot of the public don't realize, and you can tell who's on which board and commission when we sitting here based on what we talk about now and definitely does. So thank you, Mr. Kelly, for that as well. Real simple, a side board commission that I'm on, that's why I said I should have went first, the Sunshine Baseball League. So I'm going to a whole different setting here right now. But I just want to throw this out there real quick for the public. There's a pitch hit and run that I said I would do this. There's a pitch hit and run activity for the kids ages 7 to 14, and it's on April 7th at Sunshine Baseball. And I just feel it's, to use this platform and get it out there to everybody is the best way I can. And the kicker to this is that the kids come in and qualify, and then they have the opportunity to participate at Nationals Park. And then from there, whoever wins, they participate either All-Star Weekend or All-Star Game. And I think it's a big deal. And I'm just putting the word out the best that I can, you know, get the kids out there and let's have, you know, Fredericksburg represented, you know, somehow. So it's gonna take us adults to get these kids there, whatever the case. And not to pick on anybody, but I know there's an assistant principal that sits on the council, so he probably knows a lot of this age range kids that could get there. But like I said, on a lighter note for what we were just talking about in taxes and so on and so forth, but I just want to put that out there, so thank you.
What is the age range again?
7 to 14.
And it's boys and girls?
Boys and girls, and it's softball and baseball.
Softball and baseball, 7 to 14.
Yeah, and so we just need some kids to smack the ball out the park and go say that they're from Fredericksburg. That's all we need.
All right. Yeah, Councilor Duffy.
Baseball is on the rise in the city of Walker Grant won its first game last night. So.
Very good. Thank you, Councilor Fry. Does anyone want to pull any item from the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, move the consent agenda as submitted.
Second. Please cast your votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We have before us 5 sets of minutes, those of the work sessions of October 9th, October 10th, and January 23rd, and the public hearing of March 13th, and the regular session of March 13th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
City Manager Agenda, item 10A is a resolution establishing the Historic Preservation Working Group. I'll call upon our planner, Kate Swartz.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. You have before you tonight a resolution establishing the Historic Preservation Working Group, whose work will reflect the city's vision to be a proven leader in historic preservation. The City Council and Architectural Review Board recently met in a work session on February 20th to discuss their shared goals for the Historic District, including their vision for its future, cooperation and coordination, and how to foster consistency. The Council and ARB proposed the creation of this working group to continue work on these topics. The proposed group will include 9 members. 2 members will be appointed to represent the City Council. Chair John Gerlach and Carrie Burrell will represent the ARB, and 1 representative from each group will represent Fredericksburg Main Street, the Historic Fredericksburg Foundation, the University of Mary Washington Historic Preservation Department, the local development community, and the National Park Service. The group's work will include reviewing the Historic District Handbook, ARB review processes, and the Historic Preservation Plan, and recommending updates or revision to these to the Council. The group is expected to meet monthly through the end of 2018 and report on their recommendations to the Council and the community in early 2019. It is recommended that the Council proceed by establishing this working group and appointing 2 members to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Swartz? This has been in the works for a while, and I think it's a very excellent thing that we are doing. I see our ARB chair is present tonight.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the resolution establishing the Historic Preservation Working Group.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, and we thank the councilors for being willing to serve. Councilor Duffy.
Yeah, I just want to thank council and the ARB members for supporting this idea. I'm certainly looking forward to working on this project, and ask the public to please reach out to us if they have concerns or questions as we move along. But really look forward to working with this working group. Thank you.
Councilor Kelly.
I'll echo Dr. Duffy's comments. We've had some great successes and dismal failures over the past few years, and I think that the consistency, and more importantly, I think part of this is a discussion of vision and the importance of preservation of this community, and I'm hoping coming out of these discussions will be a stronger, more concise process that we need, because we are a growing city, and everybody needs to be at the table to have that discussion to make sure. But also to, again, to Ms. Schwartz's comment, show that we are in fact the leader in preservation, that this is extremely important to us. And through this process, we will both prove that and hopefully come out with a stronger vision, better process, and some more goals in pushing Fredericksburg to maintain its historic character. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10B is a resolution approving a 2018 budget amendment, and I'll call upon our budget director to do that.
Thank you and good evening. The question before council regards an appropriation of $112,000 of general fund balance committed for future capital for emergency repairs to Lansdowne Road resulting from a failure of the storm sewer water drainage pipe and retaining wall. And Mr. David King, our Public Works Director, is also here if you have any questions. Staff recommends approval of this resolution on first reading. A second reading will be scheduled for April 10th. A little bit of background: in early March, a sinkhole was located at approximately 203 Lansdowne Road, that's just west of the driveway of the El Rodeo restaurant. The sinkhole was caused by the failure of a roadside retaining wall and the associated drainage pipe beneath the road surface. As a result, the city must make emergency repairs to the road and the storm water drainage system. The repair will consist of the excavation of the eastbound lane to expose and repair the culvert pipe and the addition of new pipe on the downstream side. The construction of a new headwall abutment on the downstream side will also help to stabilize the drainage system. The project also includes the replacement of guardrail and asphalt. The estimated cost is $112,000. The repairs will require the closure of Lansdowne Road from approximately April 9th through April 27th. And staff is currently developing a plan to notify the public, including businesses, of the closures, access points, and detours. All efforts will be made to minimize the impacts of the closures while maintaining public safety. The project will impact the fund balance that's committed for future capital projects by reducing it by $112,000. These funds will be transferred to the Public Works Capital Fund so that the emergency repairs will be completed.
Any questions for Ms. Jett?
Madam Mayor, move a resolution on first read approving a fiscal year 2018 budget amendment appropriating the use of fund balance for repairs to Lansdowne Road.
Second.
Before we vote, can I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
And maybe Mr. King can answer this too. Once these repairs are done, are things going to look different in a new way, or is it, are there going to be noticeable improvements, or just that it won't be a hole in the ground? Or what are we getting for this?
I think it's on.
Okay. I didn't see the light on, just making sure.
I think they've got it rigged now, so it's permanently on.
Thank you. That's a good question. Generally, you will probably not see a major difference in the roadway at that location, other than you won't see a sinkhole. We're not planning any major road widening at the location or any major significant improvements to the location, other than we're repairing the concrete pipes that are underground, extending those pipes at the downstream end of those pipes, and installing a head wall to try to prevent future erosion at that location, in hopes of this repair lasting 15 years or more, and in hopes by that time, hopefully Lansdowne Road will then have been widened and significantly improved overall. So this is truly just a repair at a failed section of the roadway by itself.
Okay, so this is just a repair toward what will eventually, hopefully, be a
permanent repair in the future. Correct. Right.
Yep. Council Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To that point, Spotsylvania County has been doing a current study of the Route 217 corridor for widening, and we are, I know Eric is not here, but we are in discussions with them on how we can do some joint projects, because obviously Lansdowne is important to the whole 217 corridor project. And I think looking initially at some widening, turn lanes, adding a turn lane and things of that nature. So that's all in the works. I know we're working with Spotsylvania County, and hopefully we'll be able to do some of these projects jointly as opposed to just us foot in the middle. Thank you.
That is a heavily traveled part of the world these days. Yes, Councilor Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. And Mr. King, I will kind of add to the to-do list if I can. But at the time when that road is closed, is there a possibility you could have your crew look into the standing water issues closer to the tracks? The water stands on both sides of the tracks, and I know this side is the city side, and the other side, the CDS side, is Spotsylvania, of course. But it's a big problem right there by the tracks. So I'm just wondering, while you're out there, nobody else can come through. So.
We will take that as an opportunity to look at that and see what sort of corrective action we can do at that location. We will have some traffic obviously on that section of Lansdowne Road. There are some city businesses that are between the railroad tracks and the point of where our project will be that we have to obviously keep open for them. But hopefully much reduced traffic to the point that we can certainly take a look at that and see if there's some corrective activity we can do there.
Okay, sure. Thank you for the consideration.
We have a motion and it's been seconded. Please cast your votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Madam Mayor, you know, this is pretty much a no-brainer. I know it takes a second read. It would be anything wrong suspending the rules and getting it done, and that at least will save this staff having put all this information back in another packet next. So I make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, please cast your votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Make a motion that we approve on second reading.
Second.
Okay, please cast your votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, you're good to go.
Thank you.
Don't say that local government is slow. I'll call upon Mr. Baruti for the city manager's update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will highlight for citizens and businesses that we have a robust work session scheduled in our city manager's report tonight. I'll highlight next dates that folks can participate. That's April 10th. We have a work session, 6 p.m. at Executive Plaza, and 6 p.m. April 10th at Executive Plaza. That's a joint conversation with school board. Additionally, we have April 17th as the public hearing at 7 p.m. here in City Hall. The 24th, we also have a work session again here in City Hall, but in Suite